If you have made the vision board, you have pinned all the baby photos, said all the affirmations, and you're still not pregnant, then this episode is for you. Today, I want to talk about why your fertility vision board isn't working. And it is not because you didn't manifest something hard enough. We're going to unpack the role of your nervous system in all of this and how true alignment is very different from forced positivity. Welcome to your journey to fertility. This is the podcast that blends science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so that you can stop stressing that you'll never have your baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being with me here today. So my favorite episodes are definitely the ones where we get to talk about manifestation, because I'm sure you've heard me say this before, but it is the ultimate blend of science and spirit when we are talking about manifestation practices. True manifestation work is grounded in neuroscience, and I have done several episodes about manifestation on the podcast in the past. So if you want to go back and listen to some of those, I especially recommend the ones where I spoke in depth with my friend Jessie LeVacount, who is a fertility manifestation expert. So if you want to learn more about the science of how manifestation works, I highly recommend you go back to some of those. But today I want to talk more about why something like a vision board, which, don't get me wrong, I love, and I think they have a lot of value, but it's something that I see coming up a lot. And we put a lot of pressure on things like this. We think we have these amazing tools and we put the vision together and we put that up and we tune into it and we think this is going to have such a huge impact. But when we are talking about manifestation, there is a huge piece that we are often missing, and that is what I want to talk about today. I was always the one that loved incorporating the vision boards and the affirmations, and I'd be writing things in my journal, but honestly, a lot of the time, they didn't get me very far. I spent months repeating the same words over and over, and they did not get me any closer to my baby. And why is this? Because we often miss, or really we're not taught, what is fundamental to manifesting what you want in this life. So that is what I'm going to help you with today. In putting this episode together, I have narrowed it down to 6 reasons why your vision board or your manifestations or your manifesting in general just isn't working for you, and what you can do differently to start making some actual changes. So let's get into it. The number one reason that your manifestations are not happening is because your nervous system is dysregulated. And really, this is like the only thing that you need to know. So you can just turn off the episode now. No, don't. I'm going to explain it in a lot more detail. Stay with me. But honestly, everything else that we'll speak about today comes from this. And you know so much about my work and everything that I share with the world comes from this place. You can say all the affirmations, you can look at your beautiful vision board all the time, and you can tell yourself what you're calling into this life is coming your way. But if your nervous system doesn't feel safe to hold this future version of yourself, your body isn't going to believe that it's possible. So what does that actually mean? Your autonomic nervous system is subcortical. So what that means is that it sits below the thinking part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex. It's not even connected. So your nervous system doesn't understand words or language. So when you are in this state of dysregulation, your nervous system takes over and your thinking brain goes offline. So while your nervous system is in control, it looks to past experiences and it asks, is this safe? So if your body thinks that you are in a fight or flight or a stressful situation, if your nervous system thinks, okay, well, this reminds me of something that happened in the past, what's going to happen next and how can I support this person? How can I keep her safe? So what happens when we think about taking a pregnancy test or going to an appointment, or, we see a pregnant woman in the street, we seize up, and the trauma of what you have been through on this journey tells you that, or tells your nervous system that what you are wanting to call into your life isn't safe. Your brain will always look to avoid you having to go back to that pain. So you'll be triggered easily. You will avoid others. Your things like intimacy will become a huge chore. Your nervous system has developed over literally hundreds of millions of years to ensure your safety and your survival at all times. So can you see why a few pictures on the wall or a few affirmations is no match for literally millions of years of human evolution? I say this to my students all the time. We think we're so clever. We build cities and we flew to the moon. And this week we literally did fly to the moon again. And, we think we are so clever, but we are no match for what our nervous systems have evolved over and become over time. So what can we do about it? You cannot positive think your way out of unresolved trauma and grief. And these things that we hear people saying to us, like, well, you just need to think more positively, or you need to get into a higher vibe state. This doesn't help. And it creates a lot of shame around very normal emotions that go along, especially with the fertility journey. But your body does need to feel safe again. And that is the crucial part of all of this. Don't even think about feeling into the future of your vision board or doing the affirmations until you are grounded in safety. And that is where all of the tools and the things that I speak about on this podcast and the work that I do comes into this. You need daily practices and you need to do them consistently in order for your body to feel safe. So we need things like human connection. If you are wanting to get into a place of regulation, one of the best ways you can do it is literally steal regulation from someone else. Or it's in a more formal sense, it is called co-regulation. So before you get into a state of, okay, this is what I want to call in, I want to do the affirmations, I know that I can get to that place of safety, you need to spend time getting there. So spend 5 minutes moving your body, stretching your body, humming, breath work, shaking, anything that helps you to feel grounded, supported, and reminds you that you are safe in this moment. Then you can feel into your vision board. So number 2, after you have gotten yourself into that place of regulation and you feel like you are ready to start really working on some of your manifestations, I want you to think about how you might be outsourcing your power instead of partnering with your body. So what do I mean by this? You don't want your vision board to become magical thinking. Instead, what you want is for this to be something that you know you are capable of moving towards. So, it'd be all very well for me to put, I don't know, what's something crazy that I would love? I don't know. How about a villa in Tuscany? So I could put like the villa in Tuscany on my, I don't know, maybe it's worth tens of millions of euros. Like, that's all very well. But if I don't actually believe that I am capable of bringing that thing into my world, it's not going to. So I find that especially when we're on the fertility journey, so often on this journey, we need the medical side of things. And that is crucial for so many of us, right? Having a good team around you and knowing that your body needs those, those treatments or those people or those doctors, and being taken care of by people that you trust is incredibly important. True empowerment on this journey does involve lab work. It involves data and questions and that very kind of left brain analytical side of things. We need all of that. So we don't want to discount all of that. I think that a lot of things that I see, especially on social media, and, I talk about some of the things I see all the time that really drive me crazy. And it's like, well, your mindset is everything on the fertility journey. And, sure, that is true, but it is not everything if someone has blocked fallopian tubes, right? If they need IVF to be able to have a baby, there is no amount of mindset in the world that is going to overcome that. So know that we have to partner with our bodies in all of the ways that are necessary. And the medical side of things is very important for a lot of us. Now, your body communicates with you, and I want to ask you if you feel like you are listening. One of the best ways that our body communicates with us, especially obviously as women, is through our menstrual cycle. And we know that if there is something that's a little bit out of whack, if things aren't as normal as they usually are, then our bodies are trying to tell us something. This month I've had a 21-day cycle, and that is a lot shorter than normal for me. And I had quite a few PMS symptoms, which is also unusual for me. And I was like, okay, well, what has happened over the past 3 or 4 weeks? What could possibly be contributing to that? And when you start to tune in and you go, okay, right, I haven't actually been getting a great amount of sleep. My husband is trying to still find a new job, so that's all been really difficult as well. And it's just, the body is never, ever going to be able to lie. She's always there and can't tell you how she feels, so she's going to show you instead. One of the best ways I think that we can start to tune in with our bodies is to sit in some silence, tune out and get all of that noise out of the way. Place hands over your lower belly, or a hand on your chest, a hand on your belly, and just ask the question. Ask your body, how do you feel? What is it that you need me to know? What are you trying to tell me? And I know that sounds kind of woo and a bit weird, and especially if that isn't something you've done before, it might feel a bit strange, but I guarantee you some of the most incredible things can come out of that. So don't discount the ways in which our body communicates with us. Your vision board also is not going to replace things like good nutrition or sleep or stress management. So you need the foundational things in your life for your nervous system to feel regulated and for you to be able to tap in to that energy of what you're wanting to call in. And the last thing I want to say about this is that, co-creation is more grounded than, this idea of, well, the universe will just do it. I like this idea of aligned action. So yes, we tell the universe what we want, and we set our intentions to work towards that. And there is absolutely an element of surrender, and I'm going to come back to surrender shortly. But at the same time, we do want to take aligned action. Like I said, we need the tools to look after our bodies and our brains and our nervous systems and our lives. So it is a process of co-creation, and for us to really trust our body in the process. Now, the third reason that our vision boards potentially are not working is that your identity is still rooted in this idea of struggling. Your nervous system loves what it is familiar with. So even if this is something that is holding you back, if you have been struggling for a long time, it is almost guaranteed that you're kind of used to the struggle now. And the problem with that is that your nervous system actually thinks it is doing a great job because you survived. No matter what you've been through, no matter what this journey has thrown at you, and how you've reacted and how you've responded and how you've learnt to overcome what you've been through, you have survived. So your subconscious is clinging to this familiar identity of, well, she's struggling, but we're doing the right thing. We're keeping her safe. So this is a very hard one to get your head around, and it's something that we don't want to hear. We're shifting out of this idea of things are hard for me into things are possible for me is easier said than done. I recommend for this one really getting out your journal and diving into where your subconscious beliefs may be sitting. And this, I'm going to give you some journaling prompts that you can go through. So you may want to write these down or pause or save the video and come back to it later. But this work isn't easy. It is quite simple in terms of, the questions that you'll be posing to yourself and being able to write down it, bringing up everything. But honestly, when we start to unravel some of these subconscious beliefs and things that we didn't realize were kind of running the show in the background, it is hard, and it's hard for us to really look into ourselves in this way. But honestly, I believe that some of the biggest changes that have come about in my life and the changes that I see in my students come from when you are willing to do this work. So the first thing I want you to write down is, what are some examples from your life where you thought things wouldn't work out, but they did? So it might be something like when you met your partner, or when you went for your dream job, or buying the house that you were dreaming about. So anything where you thought, oh my God, this is just never going to happen. This guy is like so hot. I can't believe that we're going on a date. But now he's your husband. Things like this. And I really want you to find examples for your brain to look to be able to say, oh, we thought this was never going to happen, but it did. And I think that is incredibly powerful. So give yourself as many examples of that as you can. The second thing that I want you to write down is, who are you without your fertility struggles? What would you be doing with your life right now instead of trying to conceive? So if having a baby was not even on your radar, what would you be doing with your life? Would you be planning trips? Would you be looking for a new job? Would you be wanting to start that business that you've been putting on hold for a long time? What are the things that you would be doing if trying to conceive wasn't taking over every moment of your life? Your nervous system gets attached to hypervigilance. So we are always looking for the next thing to go wrong. So I want you to, with these 2 journaling prompts, is to really kind of let yourself see a possibility of something that isn't just the day-to-day struggle. So if you are always in this state of, well, I'm so used to struggling, and I think that, tomorrow's going to be hard, the next day, so forth. I can never see the light at the end of the tunnel here. We need to give our brains and our nervous systems ways to look for something different. The last thing I want to say around this particular point is that language matters. Really, it matters. And not because your nervous system can hear the words, because, as I've said, it doesn't understand words, but it does understand the feeling that is created from those words. So how do you speak to yourself? Do you blame yourself? Are you always putting yourself down, or, saying that you haven't done things enough or perfectly, and I shouldn't have done this and I wish I'd done that? The way you speak to yourself really, really matters, and awareness is key. So start being mindful of where you are speaking to yourself in a way that you wouldn't speak to someone that you loved. Now, the next point that I want to bring you to is this reason that your fertility vision board perhaps isn't working is because you are forcing timing from a place of control. And this comes back to the idea of surrender. I speak about this a lot. This idea that things have to happen on our timeline, because we are so used to saying, I want this, I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to achieve it within this timeline. And that works really well when it's, we're studying and we're wanting to get the job or the next job, and we're saving or whatever we want to be doing. But when it comes to fertility challenges, this doesn't work. Now, there is nothing wrong with saying to the universe, I want this to happen by this time. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And especially with IVF cycles, and I know this is a very tricky point when it comes to timing, because it's so hard to not be attached to that timeline, because there is so much riding on it, and it is a very specific time frame. But the problem becomes when you start saying it has to happen by this date and there is no alternative. Because control feels a lot safer to your nervous system than surrender. Your brain loves to feel in control. And this is just one more way of doing it. It is one more way of going into fight mode, of fight or flight. We're not physically attacking the enemy, but we are fighting what is in front of us. So things like really getting obsessive around ovulation and being perfect with your supplements and taking endless supplements and, making sure we do things perfectly, we eat the perfect diet. This sense of control is so overwhelming. Hyper-controlling situations spikes cortisol and other stress hormones enormously as well. So the more we try to do this, the more we try to grip on tightly to these timelines, the more we're going to be in this perpetual state of more cortisol, more stress, and that leads to that downstream cascade effect on all of our other hormones that we need for fertility as well. This idea of surrender, it is never about giving up. I don't ever want you to think that surrender is like, well, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to, hand it over and I don't even care what happens to the outcome. Absolutely not. It is just this idea of softening. And I've done a few specific episodes on surrender, and we do have another one coming up. I think it is next month I have planned. So if you want to listen to something about surrender in a little bit more detail, please go back and listen to some of those. But I want you to remind yourself, or get into the habit of reminding your brain that when something doesn't go the way that you want, it is not a sign that this will never happen. I had literally years and years of negative pregnancy tests until I didn't. And it doesn't mean that this is going to equal this. You can't plan it, just because I did this, it will equal that. And it's so frustrating that that isn't the case. But just because you've had 36 negative pregnancy tests, it doesn't mean the next month is going to be the same. And I know that's so hard for us to get our brains around, but everyone who ever struggled with fertility had that same experience until they didn't. So why not you? Why not next month? It is not it's never going to happen. It hasn't happened yet. And yet is such an incredibly powerful word. I want you to know that everything that you are doing to bring your baby home, you are making progress well before you get that positive pregnancy test. You are laying the foundations for a healthy body. You are laying the foundations for a healthy parent. Showing up, being here, listening to podcasts like this, doing this work, this inner work, being here. This is everything. This is the progress that you are making long before those two pink lines show up on a stick. So the second last point that I want to get into around why your vision board isn't working is because we spiritually bypass this idea of grief. And this is something that we tend to, especially I think in the fertility world, we're told to push down or push to the side because it's grief that people can't see. People can't understand this grief of something you never had. Because when we think about grief, it's like, well, I lost a grandparent or I lost my dog. And people understand that. It's very tangible, isn't it? There was a person or someone was here and then they're no longer here. But grief on the fertility journey, and especially around loss and pregnancy loss and loss of embryos and just loss of endless cycles that haven't been successful, this is grief at its absolute core. And there is so much in our lives that are just telling us that we should bypass it. Gratitude doesn't replace grief. We can't say, well, I'm grateful that I have a wonderful partner and a great job and all those things, but I lost my baby 3 months ago. It doesn't replace grief. They don't belong on the same side of the coin. They are completely separate. Yes, we can be grateful for all of those things, but we still need to acknowledge the things that we have been through. This idea of everything happens for a reason, I really hate in this space. It invalidates pain. And I know that when we think about manifestation, it's like, well, everything just worked out the way it was meant to work out. And sure, but it's not as simple as it all happened for a reason. I honestly don't believe that everything in this life happens for a reason. I have worked with too many women over too many years and seen just far too many unfathomable things that people have been through. You think, how could something like that be for a reason? I don't understand it, and I don't believe that is true. But what I do believe is that when something does happen in our lives, it is the way we then choose to respond and then work out our lives around those moments of grief and trauma and loss that really make a difference. So it's not that everything happens for a reason, but everything that happens brings us to our next place. And you can believe in miracles and still be devastated. I have a student this week who lost her baby at 38 weeks, and then she lost her next pregnancy at 12 weeks. And she is having her baby, her third baby, next week. And, you know, I I want to cry thinking about her story. And, you know, it's these sorts of things, you can still believe in the miracle of the baby that's coming and hold that space to be in that, you know, those moments of grief for the past as well. They do not cancel each other out. But studies do show us that suppressed grief can show up as physical symptoms. So whilst it isn't something that we want to ignore, it is something that we also need to address. So when something does happen that is traumatic, it's too much, too overwhelming, too much for our bodies and our nervous systems to process. So we kind of get stuck in time. We get stuck in that moment. So being able to complete that stress cycle involves you going back to that moment and allowing your nervous system to say, okay, this is what happened, and now I'm able to move through the grief. So if you find that the grief of this journey or particular things that have happened to you really are holding you back, please think about reaching out to someone and helping you work through some more of this. So often this can look like, you know, saying what you wanted to in the moment to that person who triggered you. You go back into that memory gently, or journal it out, or complete it, or feel into it so your brain thinks that it's complete. It doesn't have to be a reality for your brain to believe it. So for some of these smaller traumas or moments that you keep coming back to or that you're ruminating around, these are wonderful ways for you to start moving through that. So often in times of receiving bad news, we do go into that fight or flight state. And it's not possible for us to complete that stress response in the moment. So give yourself space to go back to it. Do what you need to do to process all of these things that we go through. The last thing I want to mention about our vision boards is that sometimes I find we treat the vision board like a guarantee. There is a quote that I love in the manifestation world, and there's a lot of it that I do not like, by the way, but this quote I do absolutely love, and that is, this or something better. Don't be so attached to your timeline or your vision board or your exact plan for the future that it rules out the possibility of something even better, something that you haven't even thought of yet, coming true. Never in a million years did I think my fertility journey would lead me into a life where I got to walk this path with others and support so many other women doing it. For those of you who know my story, I started teaching Pilates in 2009, and I used to teach 40 classes a week. I would run training sessions on the weekends. I'd run courses, and I loved it. And I was so busy, but I really enjoyed it. And I thought, this will be the rest of my life. And I was in my mid-20s when I started teaching Pilates, and that was fine nearly 20 years ago. But it sounds pretty tiring as someone who is turning 44 in a couple of months' time. I didn't really think there was an alternative. And honestly, I don't think that I would be able to do that. And who knows where my journey would have led me. But this work, like me being here, being able to share all of this with you, this is something wilder than I could ever have dreamed about. And I got the babies too. Like, the universe sometimes is taking longer than you want because it is gearing up for something way better than you thought you wanted. And I cannot stress that enough. Like, my life is just, it's inconceivable that this would have been where my path led me. But I have never been happier in my life in every aspect because of what I went through to have my family. And I want you to know that that is possible for you too. Manifestation is not a contract. It is not something you say, okay, universe, I want this. Universe goes, cool, done. No, it is a continual process of trust and taking action and just allowing changes and surrender as you go. You don't have to say, okay, well, I wanted the baby by June and I didn't get it. So, okay, I don't know. What do I do now? No, like it is something that's going to change and evolve. And this idea of being hopeful all the time, it becomes very, very hard and pressured when it's tied to deadlines. So again, leaning into this idea of possibility rather than this has to happen now. Remember, all of these deadlines we put on ourselves, they're going to increase your stress hormones. Your body is going to sense this state of desperation. And that is going to keep you in this, continual spiral of not getting to where you want to be and not trusting that you're getting to the thing that you want most. And some parts to parenthood look different. And I think that being open to potential options for the future is a really good way to unravel some of that fear that you might be feeling. I remember saying, I will never do IVF, never. I've seen people go through it. It looked like it just, totally ruined their lives and they were miserable and they just spent so much money. I will never do that. But of course I did. And it just doesn't matter. In hindsight, that fear was worse than the actual event of it. So being open reduces resistance and reduces that fear spiral that we get stuck into. This idea of being flexible is really protective for our mental health. And being in alignment with what we want, it's about integrity and just being honest with ourselves and trusting that we are doing everything that we need to get to that end result. So I hope that this episode has been helpful. I have gone on so many tangents with this episode. So I hope that it's helped you understand that why creating the vision board alone isn't quite what we need when we're talking about manifesting. But also, I don't want this episode to stop you from making a vision board because I love them and I think they can be hugely powerful, honestly. But just know that there is some deeper work that you want to be doing alongside of these tools. So if you found this episode helpful, I would love it if you could share it with someone. Honestly, we just never know who might be struggling or who might benefit from hearing some of this work. And this is the best way for us to share the show and to get it out to as many people as possible. Wherever you are listening or watching this, I would love it if you could leave me a quick written review or a comment below. Just let me know what you think. Honestly, like all feedback is appreciated. I would love to know what you think of the podcast, future topics or guests that you would love to hear. And don't forget, if this is kind of resonating with you, especially if you are a new listener, I have a bunch of free resources that you can access at any time. I have a free fertility yoga guide, which you can download. It has a bunch of regulating tools included in it, like yoga practices, meditations, breathwork practices. I have a complete fertility yoga meditation breathwork program that you can trial for just $1. So have a look at all of those resources. They're all down in the show notes. Reach out to me if you have any questions. So next week on the podcast, we're going to be speaking about what you should actually be focusing on in the 2-week wait. I know it is that dreaded time of the month where so much goes into the before ovulation. There's so much kind of writing on it leading up to that. And then there's like nothing for 2 weeks. And this is a really hard time for so many of us when we're struggling. So I'm going to explain the things that we should actually be focusing on and the things that you do not need to worry about. So until then, I am sending you all of my love as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.